What's going on, everyone? I'm that Scottish nerd that brings you Pokemon TCG content. If that's something that you want to see more of, be sure to hit the subscribe button down below, as I do post videos multiple times a week, and with the release of the new Battle Styles set, we have a lot of new decks to get through. So in today's video we're looking at the Corviknight VMAX Metal Box deck. As always, there are timestamps in the description if you want to jump between the matches and the deck profile. Here is my initial build of Corviknight VMAX and Metal Box overall, because I don't know if you can quite call it Corviknight VMAX, as we do have other stuff in here, but as I said, my initial build, and definitely going to be tinkering around with this over the coming weeks. Of course, the main Pokemon that we're going to be looking at here is the Corviknight VMAX, and the powerhouse that is this big bird, as it has 320 hit points, so on the slightly lower end for a VMAX, but still very high HP overall, you can't ignore that. It has this nice ability which prevents all effects of your opponent's abilities done to this Pokemon, so things like Obstagoon, for example, dropping 30 damage, it's not going to be happening on Corviknight because of this ability, which is a very nice little bonus. Then its attack for 3 energy does 240 damage, and then it's unable to attack during your following turn. But the main thing that you'll notice is this Pokemon has free retreat, so despite the fact that you can't attack, you can just free live retreat into a different Pokemon and attack with that instead. And of course, from the new set here, we have Bronzong with its metal transfer ability. That's going to allow you to move any metal energy from your Pokemon to your other Pokemon. So you can attack with your Corviknight VMAX, retreat it onto the bench onto a new Corviknight VMAX, and move all of the energy across and attack with a fresh one. So we have a heavy line of the Bronzong, just because I don't like prizing them. We have this specific Bronzor, since it does have the evolutionary advantage ability, which makes it so that if you go second, you can evolve on your first turn. Very nice for just making sure that you get set up, as well as also using metal saucers, because you can always get a big attack off with something like a Zacian on your first turn going second. Not very likely, but it can happen. And then I do also have one copy of this Bronzong, which prevents all damage done to it from fire Pokemon. Just as a little bit of a tech, might end up taking this out because fire decks are just so huge at the moment. I felt like it was worth including this, and it does have a reasonable attack to combat those as well. And then we do also have the 2 metal coating energy to combat against fire weakness, but overall the fire decks are going to be very difficult for you to actually win against, so these are just the little things to try and help you get over the line against those decks. Finishing it off for the Pokemon though, we do have one copy of Lucario and Metal GX. This is a nice tag team, mainly going to be using it for its GX attack, as it does reduce all of the damage that are done to your Metal Pokemon by 30, and then if you have an additional energy you can discard all of your opponent's energy, which is nice, and it can be a nice beat stick as well, dealing 50 or 150. Now looking at our other main attacker here is the Zacian. One reason that I haven't included Zamazenta in order to combat against things, or even the Aegislash, so for example Zamazenta stops your VMAXs from attacking, but you can counter that with the Zacian here since it's not a VMAX, as well as its Intrepid Sword ability, being able to use that in the opening turns, drawing 3, and if there's any metal energy you're just accelerating energy that way as well, so that you can move it around with that metal transfer ability. Lastly, of course, we do have one copy of Mew for the bench barrier. Against all of these Urshifu VMAX, the Rapid Strike ones which spread damage, you're going to want to protect against that, and Mew is the best counter to it. As well as using the attack as well, if you need to drop 3 damage counters, you can always have that as an option. The rest of the deck, pretty straightforward. We've got our usual Quick Balls, Pokemon Communications, Evolution Incense. We've also got the 4 copies of Metal Saucers, great for accelerating energy from the discard pile. And then we have pretty typical supporter line. Of course, we do have the new supporter card here from Battle Styles, Cheryl. It makes it so that you can heal all of your evolution Pokemon, but you have to discard all energy from those Pokemon. But we don't mind about that downside, since we do have the metal transfer ability. We can move energy off of our evolutions, aka Corviknight VMAX, going to be moving energy away from him, healing all the damage with Cheryl, and then getting the energy back onto our attackers to start attacking again, and just keeping our Pokemon alive overall. In terms of keeping them alive, we also have the metal goggles here, reducing damage by 30 and making it so that you can't have any damage counters drops on your metal Pokemon. Very nice tool card. And then finishing it off, we have one copy of Palpad, just to reuse Cheryl or even boss's orders throughout the game. Like I said, this is just my initial build. I'm still playing around with it. I feel like the deck is a little bit too slow at the moment for the current meta, as we are still in a very fast meta despite the prevalence of all of the evolution Pokemon in the forms of Stage 1 and VMAX Pokemon, but certainly a very fun deck, being able to move all of your energy around and heal your big Pokemon. So let's get into a couple of matches here. Be sure to give the video a like if you did enjoy it at any point, and we'll see how we get on with the Corviknight VMAX deck. Let's see what we can make happen in this match. We are up against the single strike deck. They have the Houndour and they do also have the Houndooms, so most likely playing the Urshifus, but potentially playing some other single strike attackers. We have a pretty reasonable opening hand here, my opponent choosing not to do anything whatsoever. We also get into the Lucario and Melmetal, which is probably going to be a good option in this matchup. Unfortunately, we're going to have to get rid of these two metal saucers, which is yeah, it's not great getting rid of two metal saucers early on like this. Definitely would have liked to have been able to make use of those, but we'll go for it with those. Hopefully get into some more to go along with the energy that we just got rid of there. We do get the Bronzor as well as the Evolution Incense, so we can actually get the Bronzong into play on our first turn, since we do have that evolutionary ability here. Now we could move some energy around. We could also use our Corviknight to actually attack and use Clutch, dealing 30 damage, which I think is what we're going to go for here, since we don't have a lot of other options. And we're going to move our Metal Coating energy onto the Corviknight V. We can put down a second Corviknight, it's going to be fine. And just to use Clutch for 30 here. Definitely not the most eventful start, certainly from either players, but at least we do have our Bronzong, as well as the Lucario and Melmetal. My opponent gets into the Houndoom. We'll have to see if they get into an attacker that they can use, but they have the Marnie, and they're going to be resetting our hand. Not too much of a big deal, since we did have a Marnie of our own, and all we would have been doing was attaching energy. Now we do get into the double quick ball, we can get a Pokemon out, and we do also have a Marnie once again that we're going to be making use of. There is the Urshifu coming out from the opponent's quick ball, so it is the Urshifu VMAX, the single strike build. We're going to be able to use the Houndoom here to get the single strike energy out of the deck and attached onto that Urshifu. Does have to take damage when they do this, so it's definitely going to be a benefit to us, reducing their overall HP. And they do also get the energy attachment for the turn, which is certainly what they're looking for. Sadly, they only have two cards left in their hand, so unless we top deck a Professor's Research, we're going to be helping our opponent out here. We just get the Palpad, so definitely going for the Marnie play, hoping that we get into some energy, and yeah, potentially the Corviknight VMAX, which we do get, which is nice. We could go for the GX attack here with the Lucario and Melmetal, or alternatively we could also just use the Corviknight to attack if we had another energy, but we don't have that unfortunately. I think we will go for the GX in the next coming turns. We don't really want to use it just yet. I would love to try and discard a whole bunch of my opponent's energy first of all, although if they are able to get enough single strike energy into play, then that's going to be problematic for us as well. So I think we will just retreat now, and we'll go for the GX attack with Lucario and Melmetal, making it so that all of our metal Pokemon take 30 less damage. And then we can also go in and start attacking with Lucario and Melmetal, take a knockout on this Houndoom if we can get the energy in play, that is. In a little bit of a tough spot, as we do only have a boss's orders in our hand and the two Pokemon communication, so Not looking too good here. Hopefully my opponent plays a Marnie to help us out. They do have the energy attachment and most likely going to be using the Houndoom once again to get another single strike energy into play. We see the Evolution Incense, so that's going to allow them to get the Urshifu VMAX onto their board, and they can start swinging with that and dealing some major damage into our Pokemon here. The bit of a shame that Lucario and Melmetal does have a 3 retreat cost, so it doesn't actually work that particularly well with the air balloons, but at least you only have to discard the 1 energy. And see, my opponent has the switch. Definitely would love one of those, and they thankfully do have the Marnie, which is very nice of them, getting us out of that terrible hand that we have here. So we're going to be drawing into 2 Zacian and 2 energy. This is just about as bad as our previous hand that we've seen, and my opponent is likely going to be discarding all of the energy from their single strike Urshifu here in order to deal a whole bunch of damage. Dealing, was that over 300 damage? Yep, the 270 plus the additional damage from the single strike energy which buffs it, so dealing over 300 damage, and even with the reduction from our GX attack, the Lucario and Melmetal GX is going to get knocked out. My opponent is going to take the early lead here. Also losing the metal energy on the Lucario and Melmetal is definitely not what we want to be seeing here. Yep, 310 damage, even with the reduction. I mean, it doesn't actually matter because they go through all effects, so it even ignores that. My opponent is able to take 3 prize cards, so we'll promote our Corviknight, hoping that we get into a Mental Saucer, but of course no luck. So all we can really do now is we could retreat and go into our other Corviknight, but I think just attaching an energy here and using Intrepid Sword, hoping that we can get some more energy into play that way instead. And let's see here, yeah, we just get a bunch of more useless cards. Oh dear, Boss's Orders, definitely not going to be any use at the moment, as well as that Bronzor. Not unless my opponent gets a knockout on the Bronzong, certainly not going to be any use to us. There is that Urn of Vitality getting to single strike energy back into the deck, and they do have the attachment for a turn as well, so it's going to allow them to power up their single strike Urshifu once again and deal a whole bunch of damage onto our Corviknight VMAX, most likely getting the knockout as well, but they do need the 3rd Houndoom if they actually want to get that. They have 2 in play, so that gets them the 2 single strike energy. They're also damaging themselves, as I mentioned. And we see the Quick Ball, discarding a Professor's Research. I mean, Quick Ball only gets basic Pokemon, so no Houndoom from here. To get the Jirachi GX, which is able to remove weakness, not going to be relevant in this matchup. Along with another Quick Ball to discard that Jirachi and search out another Pokemon, but if they're not able to use anything like a Dedenne or a Crobat since their bench is full, then they're not going to be able to make any use of any of these cards. They just get themselves another Houndour, and they see the Professor's Research, though they were just thinning their deck there of any useless Pokemon that they don't actually need anymore, and they're definitely looking for that Houndoom so they get the next single strike energy, 3rd energy that they need in terms of single strike, and that should get them the knockout here, as they are ignoring all effects and they would be dealing a whole bunch of damage, over 310 this following turn I'm pretty sure, but instead we just see the attack for 110 damage. And we can retreat and use a different Pokemon to attack with as well, which is going to be good for us. So I think moving energy onto our Zacian and attacking with Zacian is going to be our best option for this turn. And we'll go for the retreat here, and we use our Bronzong, moving our energies up to the active as I mentioned, and we'll get an attack off at least. Yep, we're finished with that. We'll put our metal onto the active. We don't really need to play down any of these cards. I suppose we could put down the Zacian just so that we have a backup one, as well as the Bronzor. Mainly in case my opponent uses a Marnie, then we want to thin some of these cards out of our hand. And then we'll go for the attack dealing 230 damage. So we can 2-hit our opponent, hoping of course that we get the air balloon so that we can retreat for free. Otherwise we're going to be in a little bit of a worse position again, because we need a switching card so that we can get the station out and attack with a different station. So my opponent is going to be attaching the single strike tool. In fact, didn't expect this. It's the Scroll of Scorn. It requires 1 fighting energy and does 10 more damage for each damage counter on this Pokemon. That's going to be a lot of damage they're able to deal, and it only requires 1 energy, so very nice and efficient attack. Certainly an interesting card as well. I do like those tool cards which give you an extra attack. They are using the Houndoom here to get a single strike energy onto their bench, and they are most likely going to be getting a knockout. I mean, they can use the attack, in fact, on the tool that they just attached there, and that's going to be doing more than enough damage, considering they have 310 damage on their VMAX here. So my opponent just mulling over, I guess, what they're going to do. They're going to go for the boss's orders, bringing up that Corviknight VMAX and getting the knockout on that. And that is going to be game for my opponent. Unfortunately, they do have the better battle styles deck this time around. I'll take to start this match with the Zacian, since we do have the option for free retreat through the use of our air balloons here. And we can quick ball as well, discarding one of these energy cards. We can always get Metal Saucer and recover it from the discard pile. Unfortunately, prizing a Bronzor, but we at least have one that we can put into play here. And attach an energy, let's put it onto the active, and make use of Intrepid Sword, drawing 3 cards. Nice getting into a supporter card here. Professor Research is going to serve as well, along with that Pokemon Communication, in fact, so that we can put the Mew back into the deck and make use of the Bronzong. We are up against the Salazzle deck, using the special conditions from Bellsprout's evolution and doing a whole bunch of damage with Salazzle's attack based on the special conditions affecting us. But my opponent doesn't have a whole lot going on, since they are an evolution based deck. They're going to take a couple of turns to actually get set up, just like us, but our problem is getting energy into play, so I would love if there was some sort of way to accelerate energy beyond just Metal Saucers. That would definitely be helpful. We do at least have the Bronzong that we've got into play, and we're going to use Professor's Research to discard our hand. We get the Corviknight VMAX, and we can also attach energy as well as use the Metal Saucer that I was mentioning. Definitely putting that onto the Corviknight and retreating here. And all we can do is hope that my opponent doesn't have the attack, because that would most likely get the knockout if they actually have the means to do that. But getting an early knockout is all we can really do here with our Corviknight. So we'll see what my opponent has. They don't have a huge hand going on either, just 4 cards, so they're needing to find quite a bit here. They have to find a way to affect us with special conditions, along with the Twin Energy and the Salazzle. So let's see what they can get into. If they manage to get all that, then sure, they can get the knockout. There is the boss's orders, along with the Salazzle. So let's see here, they have the evolution. This is what I'm talking about, the Weeping Bell. It has an evolution ability which allows you to burn and poison the defending Pokemon when it evolves. And that's going to be all they need, as the Salazzle does 90 for each special condition affecting us. And since we have weakness, then that is going to get the knockout. But my opponent hasn't been able to get down a Salandit, so we are going to be getting a knockout on this Salazzle. Taking out their only attacker is going to be very strong for us here. We can also quick ball away one of these Corviknight VMAXs. I don't think we're going to need both of those. And we can grab ourselves another basic Corviknight. Definitely want to make use of that. And we'll go for the attack, getting rid of this Salazzle, forcing our opponent to find another Salandit, since they did go for that boss's orders. Not really sure why they did that, as they could have definitely got a knockout on our Corviknight, since we are weak to metal. I'm pretty sure some of the other Corviknights are weak to lightning, since it is a flying type, but could be wrong on that. This time around, the VMAX anyway is weak to hit fire, and if my opponent is able to get set up, we're going to be susceptible to that. Unless of course we find the metal coating energy, then that's going to be removing our weakness. That's going to be the main way of us combating any fire decks. And my opponent does get down the Salandit, but we have the double boss's orders in our hand, which is excellent. We'll be making use of that to bring up that Salandit and take it out before it's able to evolve into a Salazzle. My opponent does go for the Team Yellhorn, which is going to confuse both active Pokemon, but seeing as Corviknight does have free retreat, we're going to be able to easily get out of this and go into our Zacian and move all of our energy around with the Bronzong in order to attack with Zacian instead. We also have the Corviknight here, of course, so we can always go into the other Corviknight since that too has free retreat. Seeing as my opponent already has taken 3 prize cards, we're probably just going to be attacking with our Zacian just in case they do have any crazy thing that goes off and they're able to get a knockout on our metal Pokemon here. So picking up the Zacian and getting knockout with that makes it so that if they knock out the Zacian, they take 2 prizes and we're not quite out of the game. You see they put down the Mewtwo, which is going to put a supporter card from the discard pile on top of their deck, putting the boss's orders on the top of their deck. We see the Level Ball getting out a Salandit, so definitely a misstep from our opponent because that's just reset their deck and they're not able to have boss's orders anymore. Sure, it's in the deck now, but considering they definitely want to be drawing into that boss's orders, we're going to be totally fine chilling here. So bring up a Salandit for sure with our boss's orders and retreating into our Zacian just like I spoke about, as it's going to be a much better attacker in case my opponent is able to get a knockout with the other Salandit over there. Moving our energy over, of course, so that we can actually attack with Zacian, and then using our attack for 230 damage, easily getting a knockout on this little basic Pokemon. And it's going to be on my opponent to find the Twin Energy along with the Weeping Bell and the Salazzle. So a lot of cards to try and find here, but they do have a 5 card hand, so as long as they have a supporter card they should be able to find everything. There is the Salazzle that they're looking for. They just need 2 more cards in order to get a knockout on us. That is going to be making it so that we lose all of our energy, which is a bit unfortunate. Perhaps using something like an experience share in this deck would certainly help us out. And yeah, just the amount of energy that getting into play is a real struggle for this deck, even with Intrepid Sword and Metal Saucers. Keeping energy in play is a big problem, because as soon as your opponent takes out a threat when it has 2 or 3 energy on it like this, then you're going to be stuck because you don't have any energy that can actually get into play. There is the Weeping Bell, so they're able to affect us with Poison and Burn. They're putting a U-turn board onto their Salazzle, but they also have the energy to attack us, so that is going to get the knockout, dealing 360 damage. And like I said, we don't have any means of getting additional energy into play. I mean, we do have the Metal Saucer, which is maybe just going to be able to eke us out, and we also get into another Metal Saucer, so maybe we'll be fine this time around. We'll get that into play. They do also miss the Salandit, so it's going to be a great opportunity for us to actually be able to make a reasonable comeback here, considering my opponent does only have 1 prize card remaining. So we're going to be using Professor's Research. We get the energy that we needed, so definitely going to be putting that into play, and we'll retreat into other Corviknight just because it's faster than moving all of the other energy around. It's a bit unfortunate that we're not able to find the metal coating energy in order to remove weakness, but considering they don't have any Salandit in play, I'm not too worried about getting hit by a fire attacker because I highly doubt they have any more fire attackers to make use of. So we'll go down to 2 prize cards remaining here. If my opponent does get a Salandit, there's not much that we can do about it since we don't have any means of recovering boss's orders, unfortunately. And let's see what they get. They have the U-turn board going onto the active and the Marnie. That's actually going to be helpful for us. It might get us into the boss's orders. We can have a quick look at the discard pile. We do have 2 boss's orders in the discard pile already, which is a bit of a shame. We only have one remaining, but of course we do have that pal pad that we're playing as well, in case we are able to recover those boss's orders. So we get into the metal coating energy. That's going to be helping us out a ton against this deck, making it so that my opponent isn't able to one-hit us. And there we go, there's the victory. They aren't able to find any more Solanda or get set up any further, so we're able to take a nice victory against a fire deck there, which would be getting a whole bunch of one-hit knockouts. Let me know if you guys enjoyed this video. We were just able to scrape a knockout there and actually get a victory with the deck, so very happy. Definitely a reasonably fun deck. I don't think it's going to be any kind of a top tier deck just yet, but we'll see how it develops over the coming weeks, and I'll see you guys in the next video.